you can't shock an audience anymore. There's no such thing as shocking an audience. The news is more shocking than anything Marilyn Manson or I or anybody else can do. It was easy to shock an audience in 1970 because they'd never seen anything like this.
Planet Rock.
Planet Rock.
This is Planet Rock. Very happy to welcome back Alice Cooper. Welcome.
I feel like I'm back at home.
You are. You are. Sometimes, a home is a place that you can go back to even after you've left for a bit.
Yeah, that's
You're always
right.
welcome here.
That's right, yeah.
For sure. So, exciting times. You've put the band back together.
It was one of those things where we accidentally made a 1975 album. We really did. We had no idea what it was going to be when we all got together, and with Bob Ezrin, our producer, 50 years later. And it was as though 50 years had not gone by. It was exactly going into the studio for the next album after $1 Billion Babies. I mean, it was, but when the band broke up, we didn't break up. We didn't divorce. We separated.
Right.
There was no bad blood. Nobody was angry. It was just everybody went different directions.
I was going to ask, well, first of all, why now? And what changed or what instigated this reunion?
They actually had played on the last 4 albums of mine. They'd done things on all my albums. And it just occurred to me, I said, nobody would ever expect us to do another album. That's perfect Alice Cooper logic.
Yep.
Don't, if they're not expecting it, do it. And so I said, if we get Bob Ezrin on board, then let's do it. And Bob said, yeah. Again, we did not know what to expect in the studio. And Dennis always had songs. Neil always had songs. Mike always, and I always. So everybody just put all the songs in a great big pile. We tried all of them. And I said, the only thing that I really want to do is live in the studio. I want the band to play live because they can all play great. They all play better, as good as they have ever played, And I don't want it to be layered. I don't want it to be like a $1 Billion Babies. We layered everything, whereas the band got in the studio and just played live, and it just rocked,
And Glenn Buckston is on the album as well. Now, how does that work? How did that happen?
Dennis Dunaway never threw anything away. He had tapes of us in high school, in my parents' living room, rehearsing Beatles songs.
Wow.
When we were kids. So he said, I do have a song that we were writing, that Glenn was writing, and I just happened to have it. What it was the song never really took shape, but the guitar part, we isolated it, which you couldn't do before. Now with technology, you can do that. I isolated the guitar part and wrote the song around the guitar part. So, the whole album is basically dedicated to Glenn. He was our Keith Richards, and he was irreplaceable. So, songs like "See You on the Other Side," that was to him. What a Sid. Glenn was one of those guys that couldn't jam with a blues band, but the only person I ever heard him jam with was Sid Barrett. That's.
Does Dennis have a recording of that?
Yeah, that would be a good one. No, that was in a bedroom. When they ended up staying with us for a few nights because they ran out of money early on, and we were in the same situation, but at least we had a house.
Yeah.
And Glenn and him were in a bedroom with 2 echoplexes going
cool.
back and forth with all night.
It probably sounded great to them at that moment, but perhaps not to anyone else.
Yeah, I think everybody was in a state of mind where it sounded pretty cool.
Right. Which actually brings us around to, you mentioned Bob Ezrin, and he's the 5th Beatle, as it were.
Yeah.
How important is Bob Ezrin, the producer to Alice Cooper music?
He is the other member of the group. He's our George Martin. What George Martin did with the Beatles is what he did with us. He listened to all the songs. He heard the hooks. He heard the good parts. He knew everybody could play, and he just went that. And for some reason, we listened to him. We never listened to any producer because we were so sure of what we were doing. He was the one that actually, we listened to him because he said, if we take that, eliminate that, put this in, da-da-da, and we're going, okay. We didn't even listen to Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
But we listened to Bob Ezrin, who was It was his first production. Love It to Death was.
And he did all right for himself,
He
with
did
you guys
okay.
and,
Yeah.
Kiss and Pink Floyd.
But he was just as, his sense of humor is just as dark as ours, you know.
That's something that a lot of people don't talk about is the relationships within a band, or even in regular jobs for that matter, how important it is that you're able to play nice with the other kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, it was one of those things where he got to be such a part of the band that, we actually wanted him to play on stage, keyboards. And then we realized we didn't want any keyboards.
I thought you were going to say, and then we realized he doesn't know how to play the keyboards.
We were, he could play everything. He plays
Yeah.
guitar, plays everything, So, I mean, but at the time, he could have fit in the band. He had hair down to here,
Sure.
He could have been. We said, we don't want to be a keyboard band,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Have you come up with new ways to kill Alice, or have you now resorted to maybe killing other members of the band?
Well, here's the thing: is that we tried doing different things. It has to have a sudden snap to it. We did a thing where you said, "Well, we'll burn Alice at the stake." That's slow.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. We could do this, we could do that. I said,
I guess
anything that
crucifixion's out then.
with the guillotine, bing, and it's a shock.
Yeah.
The gallows, shung,
Yeah.
it's a shock. You have to have that moment. You can't have a slow. We did electrocution. It sat there, didn't do anything, But the two things that work are those,
So no.
We haven't found any new ways to kill me that really are, that you can do every night and make it look great.
Great. Well, but Alice still has to die every night, right?
Oh, well, he's the
I mean,
villain.
I don't want to give anything away. After 50
He's
years.
the villain. I think, people always talk about shock rock, and I go, you can't shock an audience anymore. There's no such thing as shocking an audience. The news is more shocking than anything Marilyn Manson or I or anybody else can do. It was easy to shock an audience in 1970 because they'd never seen anything like this,
Right.
Now, it's not the matter of shock. We still do the things that were shocking, but now they're traditional. People would feel really, cheated if they didn't see the guillotine at the end, or if they didn't see it's now a traditional thing.
Yeah.
How well do you do it now? Now we do it in different ways,
Right. Absolutely. So what's the future? You got the Revenge of Alice Cooper you've done Cardiff over here.
Yeah.
You're doing the Union Chapel thing tonight. You've got the gig with Judas Priest. So
Yes.
not a huge amount of gigs in the UK, but I mean, is this going to continue on?
Touring is always going to continue on. I mean, we've already designed the next show, for that's coming up. This show is going to be put to bed pretty soon, and then they're building out the new show already in the States. So that's going to be another 2 years for that show, and then about every 2 years we redesign the show. And I mean, there's like no retirement in my plans at all. I don't think the original guys want to tour. I think that they love doing this album, and I would do another album with them easily. I mean, we had no idea what this was going to be, and we listened back to the album. We really liked it. I mean, I didn't find any place there where I went, I said, wow, we didn't know what to expect. We did have the luxury of going to different guitar players, though, since we didn't have Glenn.
Right.
We didn't have a lead player. So Robbie Krieger from the Doors played on Black Mamba. We found a guy named Yazzie in Nashville. He's a younger guy. He has blonde hair like Glenn. He was wearing bell bottoms with pointed shoes and glitter. And he says, I learned to play guitar listening to Glenn Buckston. And we went, what? And so he played on most of the album. He knew how to, he had the exact same feel that we had in the studio.
Well, I suspect we'll be hearing more from Yazzie
Yeah.
as time rolls
Yeah.
on. You say they're designing the new show. Who's they?
Well, the people that we work with there are 3 or 4 different organizations that we farm it out to. We say, this is what we want to see, and you guys build this part, you guys do this part, you guys play the, and then once it all gets there, it's Christmas morning.
Okay.
Because we go to rehearsal and go, now how do we assemble this big Lego game?
What if you don't like something?
You don't use it.
Right.
You find, but there's nothing that's there that you can't twist and turn into what you want. It may not be what you thought it was going to be,
right,
but it ends up being something else.
Right.
Yeah,
there are happy accidents in this world, things you don't expect.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times a band member will go, a new band member might go, well, what happens if I fall over my amp? I go, wait for 5 songs, then fall over your amp again. I said, and then wait another 5 songs, then do it again. And then people in the audience go, oh, yeah, he's the fall over the amp guy, because I said there's no such thing as a mistake if you repeat it.
Yep. If you wouldn't mind, Alice, could you tell me an Alice Cooper Spinal Tap moment, something that's happened to you?
How much time do you have?
Well, I do like the snake that had diarrhea story.
Yeah.
I remember
that's
that
a good one. We decided that we're doing Three Rivers Stadium in sold-out football stadium, and we came up with the idea, I have an idea, let's shoot Alice out of a cannon across the thing into, And the trick was, you had the big cannon, you load Alice in, I get out the side, there's a dummy in there, and it shoots the dummy across the stage into a thing. And of course, by then I'm already over there.
Right.
That's the trick. And so it worked great in rehearsal. Of course, the audience is there, and the thing actually goes boom, and the dummy goes and just hangs there. At that point, then you have to go Clouseau on them. You have to go total, like you walk out and you kind of pull the dummy out and put it down, and you have to make them think that was the joke, that it doesn't work. The next day, we sold the cannon to the Stones. One of the guys said, what are you going to do with that? And we said, you want it? Perfect for the Stones. I think he had a whole different idea behind the cannon, sitting on it.
Well, if we ever get Keith or Mick in here, we'll have to ask them what happened to the cannon.
If they ever used it.
Yeah. And one other Spinal Tap question, which is, what is your favorite moment from the movie itself?
Well, there's so many great moments because Chris Guest is just so brilliant. I mean, he is really absolutely brilliant. Talking about his guitar going to 13, opening for a puppet show. We've done that. When I saw Spinal Tap, I went, there's so much of us in this. Because in the early days, you did all that. Showing up to a place where nobody shows up because you're not big enough for anybody to show up. It's when the record company thinks you're bigger than you are. And to this day, when we're going to do like bookstores and signings and things like that, I always go, is anybody here? And then I see a line around the block. I go, great.
Actually, we had something similar. It turned out okay, but they had at our festival, which would be great if you played, but I don't think we can afford you, at Rockstock. But they said, this year we're going to have Meet the Presenters. And I went, oh, God, no, nobody's going to turn up. Thankfully, they did, but I thought, why would anybody want to?
Well, wait a minute. We did a thing about giving ice cream away.
Oh, yeah, we did. That's great video, legend.
We walked out of the building and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And we just started walking down the street handing out ice cream.
Do you not remember? Everybody was more interested in the ice cream than who was giving it out. They were going, I don't know.
Yeah,
that one looks nice. What do you recommend? And you're like,
I don't know.
Hello?
Tutti Frutti. Yeah, that sounds good. But that was one of those moments where I thought there was going to be a lot of people. And then we walked out and we kind of looked around. It was a hot day.
It was.
Everybody wanted ice cream.
Yeah, yeah, they went fast. They went fast. Brilliant stuff. I think you probably need to hightail it up to Islington.
Got to go see my boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, Alice, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Planet Rock. Planet Rock.